Chapter 1. The forest doesn't care that she's bleeding. Alara's bare feet slam against frozen earth, her breath tearing from her lungs in ragged gasps that cloud the air before her face. The winter storm howls through the pines like a living thing, furious and unforgiving, whipping her dark hair across her eyes until she can barely see 3 feet ahead. But she doesn't need to see to know they're still behind her. She can feel them, the weight of their judgment, the heat of their rage, the way the pack bond she once cherished now wraps around her throat like a noose. She should have seen this coming. Maybe she did. Maybe she just refused to believe that love could turn so cold, so fast. Her bare shoulder slams into a tree trunk, and the impact sends a shockwave of pain down her arm. She bites down on a scream, swallowing it whole, because making noise now would be the end of everything. The thin silk gown, the one she wore for the bonding ceremony, the one that was supposed to mark her as queen, is torn and muddy, clinging to her skin like a second layer of shame. The intricate silver embroidery along the neckline, painstakingly stitched by the pack elders, who believed in her, now mocks her with every stumbling step. They believed in her, until they didn't. Thunder cracks overhead, and for a split second, the sky lights up, brilliant, blinding white. In that flash, Alara sees the cliff edge 20 yards ahead, the drop into darkness below, and she knows she's running out of ground, out of options, out of time. Her hands are shaking, not from the cold, though the storm is brutal enough to kill, not from fear, though terror sits heavy in her chest like a stone. No, her hands shake because the power inside her is waking up, clawing its way to the surface, and she doesn't know if she can stop it this time. Silver light flickers beneath her skin, tracing the veins in her wrists like lightning trapped under glass. It's beautiful. It's terrifying. It's the reason Damien chose Celeste instead. She's dangerous, Celeste had whispered in the throne room, her voice dripping with false concern, her hand resting possessively on Damien's arm. You've seen what she can do. The elders are afraid, my king. They say she'll bring ruin to the pack. And Damien gods. Damien had looked at Alara like she was already a stranger. Like the 3 years they'd spent building something real meant nothing. Like the promises whispered in the dark, the plans for their future, the way he'd traced her face and called her his salvation, like none of it had ever happened. The bond is severed, he'd said, his voice flat, his eyes empty. You are no longer my mate, no longer welcome in this pack. Celeste had smiled then, a small secret smile that made Alara's stomach turn. The wind shifts, carrying voices, male, angry, close. Find her. The king wants this handled quietly. Quietly, of course. Can't have the disgraced almost queen making a scene. Can't let the other packs know that the Alpha King's mate was cast out like trash, that his best friend, slid into her place before the bond even cooled. Alara's foot catches on a root, and she goes down hard, palms slamming into mud and ice. The impact jolts something loose inside her, and the silver light beneath her skin flares bright enough to cast shadows across the trees. She gasps, trying to shove it back down, but it's like trying to hold back a flood with her bare hands. Not here. Not now. If they see what she can really do, they won't just exile her, they'll kill her. She forces herself up, legs trembling, and staggers toward the cliff edge. Below, she can hear water, a river, swollen with snowmelt, rushing through the ravine. It's a deadly drop. She knows this. But behind her, the voices are getting closer, and the torches they carry paint the forest in flickering orange and gold. Her wolf, the part of her that should be howling for survival, demanding she shift and fight, is silent, curled up somewhere deep inside, wounded and confused, trying to understand how the mate bond could break so completely, trying to understand why Damien let it happen. Because he never really wanted you, a voice whispers in the back of her mind. He wanted someone safe, someone controllable, someone who wouldn't outshine him. The silver light crawls up her arms now, wrapping around her shoulders, and Alara feels something ancient stir in her blood. Something that predates the packs, the territories, the politics. something that remembers when wolves were wild and magic ran free through the world. She's always been afraid of this power. The elders called it a blessing, but their eyes said otherwise. Her own mother had looked at her with fear, the first time it surfaced, when Alara was 12, and accidentally set the training grounds ablaze with silver fire that wouldn't die. "You're special," Damien had told her once, holding her close after a nightmare. "The pack needs someone like you." Lies. He needed someone he could control, and when he realized he couldn't, when he saw that Celeste would never challenge him, would always defer, would always smile and nod, and play the perfect queen, he made his choice. The torches break through the tree line. Alara stands at the cliff's edge, the wind whipping her ruined gown around her legs, silver light pulsing beneath her skin like a second heartbeat. Below, the river roars. Behind, her hunters close in. And then she hears it, a sound that stops her heart. A howl, low, commanding, threaded with power that makes the air itself vibrate. It's not from the hunting party. It's coming from across the ravine. Someone is out there in the storm. Someone who just announced their presence to every wolf within 10 miles. Someone who either has a death wish or is powerful enough not to care. Alara's breath catches as a figure emerges from the darkness on the opposite cliff, tall, broad-shouldered, radiating an authority that makes her wolf finally lift its head and pay attention. Their eyes meet across the distance, and even through the storm, even through the chaos, she feels it, a pull, recognition, something old and inevitable clicking into place. Subscribe to Clarissa Romance Collections. She thinks wildly, hysteria bubbling up in her chest, where abandoned mates get rescued by mysterious strangers at cliff edges during thunderstorms. The hunters burst into the clearing behind her. The stranger across the ravine doesn't move, and Alara realizes with absolute bone-deep certainty that her story isn't ending here. It's just beginning. Chapter 2. The stranger moves before Alara can even process what's happening. One moment he's on the opposite cliff, a dark silhouette against the storm-torn sky. The next, he's moving, launching himself across the ravine with a power that defies physics, defies reason. His shift happens mid-air, bones restructuring, fur rippling across muscle, and the wolf that lands on her side of the cliff is massive. Midnight black, with eyes that glow amber in the darkness, large enough that when he stands between her and the hunting party, he blocks out everything else. Alara's back hits the cliff edge, stones crumbling beneath her heels, and her heart hammers against her ribs so hard she thinks it might break through. The silver light under her skin flares in response to the new threat, or maybe to the promise of protection. She can't tell anymore. Everything inside her is screaming confusion, terror, and something else, something that feels dangerously like hope. The lead hunter, Joshua, one of Damien's most loyal warriors, freezes when he sees the black wolf. His torch wavers, and in the flickering light, Alara watches the color drain from his face. "Impossible," Joshua breathes, and there's a tremor in his voice she's never heard before. Joshua, who once killed 3 rogues, single-handedly. Joshua, who never showed fear. "You're supposed to be dead." The black wolf doesn't respond. Not with words, anyway. But the growl that rumbles from his chest is an answer all on its own, low, resonant, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. It's a sound that speaks of ancient bloodlines and power that predates the current pack structures. It's a sound that says, "Try me and see what happens." The other hunters step back instinctively, their wolves recognizing something their human minds are still trying to process. Pack hierarchy is written into their DNA, and whatever this creature is, he outranks them so completely that their bodies know it before their brains catch up. Alara presses herself against the rock face, trying to make herself smaller, trying to understand what's happening. The wolf is protecting her, that much is clear. But why? She's never seen him before, never heard a howl like his, never felt pack bonds that taste like smoke and starlight, and something wild that makes her own power sit up and sing. Joshua raises his torch higher, and his hand shakes. "The king will hear about this. You're interfering with pack justice." The black wolf shifts then, bones cracking, muscle reforming, and the man who stands between Alara and her hunters is not what she expected. He's tall, easily 6'4", with broad shoulders that speak of both warrior training and something more primal. His black hair is longer than current pack fashion dictates, falling past his collar in waves that make him look like he stepped out of an old legend. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, and those eyes, amber and ancient and burning with an intensity that makes her breath catch. He's completely naked, because shifts don't come with convenient clothing, but he wears it like armor, like he's utterly comfortable in his own skin, utterly unconcerned with the 5 armed warriors pointing silver-tipped spears at his chest. Pack Justice. His voice is deep, rough around the edges, and carries an accent she can't quite place. Something northern. Something old. Is that what you call hunting a woman through a winter storm? Chasing her to a cliff edge, like she's prey? She's a traitor. Joshua spits, though he doesn't lower his weapon or step forward. I know who she is. 4 words. That's all it takes for Alara's entire world to tilt sideways. He knows who she is, which means he's been watching, waiting. But for what? And more importantly, why does the way he says it make her feel seen for the first time since Damien destroyed everything? The stranger turns his head slightly, enough to look at her over his shoulder, and when their eyes meet, something electric passes between them. Recognition. Yes, but deeper than that. Like their souls have been circling each other for lifetimes, waiting for this exact moment in this exact storm. Alara Nightshade, he says, and her name on his lips sounds like a prayer and a promise wrapped in darkness. Daughter of the Silver Flame line, last of the moon blessed, the woman your fool of a king was too blind to see. Her knees nearly buckle. The Silver Flame line, moon blessed, those are terms from the old stories, from before the packs organized into territories and hierarchies, from when magic ran through wolf blood, like wildfire, and certain bloodlines could call down the moon itself. Her grandmother used to whisper those stories, but Alara thought they were just fairy tales, pretty lies to make a strange child feel special instead of cursed. How do you, she starts, but her voice cracks, barely audible over the wind. We don't have time for explanations. He doesn't take his eyes off Joshua and the hunting party. These fools are debating whether orders from their king outweigh their survival instincts. In about 30 seconds, they're going to choose wrong. Joshua's jaw clenches. Stand aside. This doesn't concern you, Chaol Stormborn. You have no authority here. No authority? Chaol's laugh is dark, humorless. I was leading armies when your grandfather was still learning to shift. I walked these territories when they belonged to no one and everyone. And I'm telling you now, lay down your weapons and go back to your king. Tell him the woman he abandoned is under my protection now. Let him try. The air between them crackles with tension so thick, Alara can taste it, ozone and threat and barely leashed violence. Her power responds, silver light crawling across her collarbones, and Chaol's eyes flick to her again. This time, instead of wariness, she sees hunger, not the base kind, but something deeper, like he's been searching for something precious that was lost, and he's just now found it. Can you run? He asks her, his voice dropping to something almost gentle. She should say no. She's exhausted, injured, running on nothing but adrenaline and heartbreak, but something in his question, the way he asks like her answer actually matters, like he'll fight 5 warriors and tear through the entire kingdom if she needs him to, makes her stand straighter. Yes, she lies, because pride is all she has left. His mouth curves into something that might be a smile under different circumstances. Good. 'Cause when I tell you to move, you run north. Don't look back. Don't stop until you reach the old shrine at the border. You'll be safe there until I come for you. You're insane, she whispers. Probably. He shifts his stance, and suddenly he looks less like a man and more like a weapon waiting to be unleashed. But I've been watching you for months, Alara. Watching your king take you for granted. Watching your best friend circle you like a vulture. Watching the light in your eyes, dim a little more every day. Her breath catches. Months. He's been watching for months. I told myself I wouldn't interfere, Cale continues, his voice rough with something that sounds like regret, that you'd made your choice. But then tonight happened, and I realized, you never had a choice at all. He never gave you one. Joshua raises his spear. Enough of this. The king commanded. The king, Cale interrupts, and his voice drops to something lethal, is about to learn what it costs to throw away something precious. He looks at Alara one last time, and the intensity in his amber eyes pins her in place. Then he shifts, faster than before, more violent, and launches himself at the hunting party with a roar that shakes snow from the trees. Alara runs. Chapter 3. Alara's legs scream in protest with every step, but she doesn't stop, can't stop. Behind her, the sounds of battle echo through the forest, snarls and shouts, and the wet thud of bodies hitting frozen ground. She wants to look back, wants to see if Cale is winning or dying for a woman he claims to have watched, but never spoken to, a woman whose name he knows like a secret he's been keeping. But she runs north, like he told her, because something in his voice made it impossible to disobey. The trees blur past in a haze of white and shadow, her breath coming in ragged gasps that burn her lungs. The thin ceremonial gown does nothing against the cold, and she can feel her body temperature dropping, her movements becoming sluggish. Hypothermia isn't far off, but it's not the cold that's killing her. It's the memories that chase her faster than any hunting party ever could. 3 months ago. The Royal Gardens. Damien's hands in her hair. "You're everything I never knew I needed," he'd said. His gray eyes soft in the moonlight. "When I'm Alpha King, you'll stand beside me. We'll change everything, Alara. Make the packs stronger. United." She believed him. Gods help her. She believed every word. Alara stumbles over a root and catches herself against a tree, gasping. The silver light under her skin pulses in rhythm with her heartbeat. Faster now, brighter, like it's trying to break free. She presses her palm against the bark and forces it down, back into the dark place where she's kept it locked since she was 12 years old. Since the incident, her mother's face flashes through her mind, beautiful and terrified, staring at her daughter like she'd given birth to something monstrous. The training grounds had been engulfed in silver flames that wouldn't die, wouldn't respond to water, or earth, or any of the elemental wolves who tried to contain it. 3 wolves had been burned before Alara's grandmother, ancient, powerful, terrifying, had stepped into the fire and whispered words in a language Alara didn't understand. The flames had died, but the fear in everyone's eyes hadn't. "Never let them see," her grandmother had hissed, gripping Alara's shoulders hard enough to bruise. "Never let them know what you are. They'll call you blessed, but they'll treat you like a curse. Promise me, child. Lock it away. Lock it deep." She'd promised, and for 15 years, she'd kept that promise. Buried the power so deep that sometimes she could almost forget it existed. Almost convince herself she was normal. Just another wolf in the pack, nothing special, nothing dangerous. Then she'd met Damien. He'd been different from the start, charismatic, ambitious, but also kind, or so she thought. He'd pursued her with a single-mindedness that felt like destiny, like the universe had finally decided to give her something good, after years of being treated like a fragile thing that might explode if handled wrong. "I see you," he'd told her once, tracing her jawline with his thumb, "the real you, and I'm not afraid." More lies, pretty poisonous lies that tasted like honey going down and turned to ash in her stomach. Alara pushes off the tree and keeps moving, even though every muscle in her body is screaming for rest. The shrine. Cale said there was a shrine at the border. She has to reach it, has to find shelter before her body gives out completely. 6 weeks ago. The throne room. Celeste's hand on Damien's arm. Celeste, her best friend since childhood. The girl who'd braided her hair and shared secrets and promised they'd always look out for each other. The girl who'd smiled and congratulated her when Damien proposed the mate bond. Who'd helped her plan the ceremony. who'd stood beside her like a sister, who'd been sleeping with Damien for months. Ilara had found out by accident, walked into his chambers early one morning to surprise him with breakfast, only to find Celeste in his bed, wearing nothing but one of his shirts, and a satisfied smile that turned to fake shock when she saw Ilara in the doorway. "Oh gods, Ilara. We didn't mean for you to." But Damien's face, that's what had destroyed her. Not guilt, not shame, just calculation. Like he was running through scenarios in his mind, weighing options, deciding which version of the story would serve him best. "We need to talk," he'd said, and his voice had been so calm, so reasonable, like he wasn't ripping her heart out through her chest. The silver light flares again, responding to the memory, to the rage that sits in her stomach like molten metal. Ilara gasps and shoves it down, but it's getting harder. The more she runs, the more exhausted she becomes, the less control she has. And if she loses control out here, alone in the wilderness, she doesn't let herself finish that thought. 2 weeks ago, the council chambers, the elders' verdict. They'd called a gathering. All the high-ranking wolves, all the elders, all the advisors who'd once smiled at her and called her future queen. Damien had stood at the head of the table, Celeste beside him, already wearing the silver circlet that was meant for Ilara's brow. "The council has concerns," Elder Mordrin had announced, his ancient eyes fixed on Ilara like she was a specimen to be studied. "About your heritage, your power. There have been incidents." "What incidents?" Ilara had demanded, her voice shaking. "I've done nothing." "The silver fire in the north wing," Celeste had interrupted, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "When you were angry with the seamstress, the burns took weeks to heal." A lie, complete fabrication. But when Ilara had looked at Damien, waiting for him to defend her, to tell them the truth, he'd said nothing, just stood there, silent, letting them paint her as dangerous, unstable, a threat. For the safety of the pack, Mordrin had continued, "We recommend severing the mate bond, immediately." And Damien had nodded, actually nodded, like they were discussing crop rotations instead of destroying her entire life. "I agree," he'd said, "for the good of our people." The good of our people. As if Ilara wasn't one of their people. As if 3 years of devotion, of service, of loving him with everything she had meant absolutely nothing. She'd felt the bond break, like a rope snapping inside her chest, leaving raw, bleeding edges that would never fully heal. Her wolf had howled, confused and wounded, unable to understand why their mate would do this, why he would choose ambition and a more convenient woman over the bond they'd built together. Ilara crashes through a thicket, and suddenly she's there. The shrine. Ancient stone pillars rise from the snow, arranged in a circle that hums with old magic. Symbols are carved into the rock, worn by time but still visible. Moon phases, wolf prints. And there, on the center stone, a silver flame, perfectly rendered, exactly like the one that burns under her skin. She staggers into the circle, and the moment she crosses the threshold, something shifts. The wind dies, the cold recedes, and the power inside her, the thing she's been fighting and suppressing and hating for so long, suddenly feels less like a curse and more like a key sliding into a lock. The symbols on the stones begin to glow, soft at first, then brighter, silver light that mirrors her own. And Ilara realizes with bone-deep certainty that her grandmother's stories weren't fairy tales at all. They were warnings. She sinks to her knees in the center of the shrine, her ruined gown pooling around her, and lets herself break. The tears come hot and fast, months of pain and betrayal, finally pouring out. She cries for the love she lost, for the friend who betrayed her, for the future that was stolen. But most of all, she cries for the girl she used to be, the one who thought, if she just stayed small enough, quiet enough, normal enough, she'd finally be safe. That girl is gone now, dead and buried in the snow outside Damien's castle. And in her place, something is waking up. Chapter 4. The symbols don't stop glowing. Ilara wipes her tears with shaking hands, but the silver light only grows brighter, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. The ancient stones hum, a low, resonant frequency that she feels in her bones, in her blood, in the marrow of who she is. The shrine responds to her presence like it's been waiting, like it recognizes something in her that she's spent her entire life trying to hide. She pushes herself to standing, legs trembling, and turns in a slow circle. The pillars tower above her, at least 12 feet tall, each one carved with intricate patterns that seem to shift when she's not looking directly at them. Wolves running, moons waxing and waning, and everywhere, that silver flame symbol, repeated like a mantra carved in stone. "What is this place?" she whispers to the empty air. The wind answers, or something does. A breeze that shouldn't exist within the shrine's protection swirls around her, warm and impossibly gentle, carrying the scent of wild sage and moonflower, and with it comes a voice, not spoken aloud, but pressed directly into her mind like a memory that isn't hers. The sanctuary of the first flame, where the moon-blessed came to remember. Ilara's breath catches. The voice is feminine, ancient, layered with the resonance of countless others speaking in unison. It doesn't frighten her the way it should. Instead, it feels like coming home after a long exile. "Moon-blessed," she says aloud, testing the words. "Chael called me that. What does it mean?" The symbols flare brighter, and suddenly the space between the pillars isn't empty anymore. Images form in the silver light, translucent, shimmering, like memories projected onto mist. She sees wolves running under a full moon, but these aren't ordinary wolves. They glow from within, silver light radiating from their fur, their eyes, their very essence. They move with a grace and power that makes modern pack wolves look clumsy by comparison. Before the packs divided, before territories and hierarchies, and the endless hunger for control, we were whole, we were wild, we were blessed by the moon herself. The images shift. A woman stands atop a mountain, arms raised to the sky. Silver flames erupt from her hands, not destroying but creating, healing wounded wolves, purifying corrupted land, calling rain from cloudless skies. Other wolves gather around her, not in submission, but in reverence, in love. The first flame, she who could channel the moon's power directly, she who reminded us that strength and compassion were not opposites, but partners. "That's just a story," Ilara protests, but her voice wavers. "My grandmother told me stories, but they were myths, legends, not—" "Every legend starts with truth, child." The images shift again, darker now. The glowing wolves fracture, splinter, divide. Territory lines are drawn. Packs form and reform, alphas rising and falling, and with each division, the light dims a little more. The silver flames flicker and fade until only embers remain, scattered across bloodlines like dying stars. We forgot. In our quest for power, for dominance, for control, we forgot what we were. The moon-blessed bloodline was hunted, feared, nearly extinguished, because power that cannot be controlled is power that threatens those who crave control. Ilara's hands clench at her sides. She thinks of Damien's face when the elders questioned her, the calculation in his eyes, the way he chose a kingdom over a mate who might outshine him. "So I'm what? Some kind of remnant? A mistake that should have died out generations ago?" "You are no mistake." The voice turns sharp, almost angry, and the temperature in the shrine rises. The silver flames on the stones burn brighter, hot enough that Ilara can feel the heat against her skin. "You are the answer to a prayer we've been whispering for 300 years. The bloodline survived because it had to, because the moon herself ensured it would. You are not a curse, Ilara Nightshade. You are a reckoning." The images solidify into something specific now, a prophecy carved into the center stone, words she hadn't noticed before, because they were written in the old language. But now, with the shrine awakened, she can read them as clearly as if they were written in her own hand. When silver flame burns bright again, when the blessed one is cast aside by foolish kings, when betrayal cuts deeper than any blade, she will rise from ashes of her former life. and remind the wolves what power truly means. Ilara's knees threatened to buckle again, cast aside by foolish kings. The prophecy knew. Somehow, centuries ago, someone knew that she would be betrayed, that she would be abandoned, that she would end up here, in this shrine, reading words that described her pain with devastating accuracy. This can't be real, she breathes. Prophecies don't just. People don't just. Why do you think he watched you? The voice is gentler now, almost maternal, and Ilara knows immediately who he is. Chaol. Chaol Stormborn, last of the Stormwalkers, another dying bloodline, another remnant of what we once were. He's been searching for you since the dreams started 5 years ago. Dreams. The moon speaks to those who still listen. She showed him your face long before you met your false king, showed him the silver flame that would rise again, told him to watch, to wait, to be ready when the prophecy began to unfold. Ilara's mind reels. 5 years. Chaol has known about her for 5 years, watching from the shadows while she built a life with Damien, while she fell in love with a man who would eventually discard her, while she tried so desperately to be normal, to be safe, to be anything other than what she actually is. Why didn't he? She stops, frustrated. Why didn't he stop it? If he knew what would happen, why let me go through all that pain? Because the prophecy required it. You could not rise from ashes if you were never burned. You could not reclaim your power if you never lost everything else first. The cruelty of it steals her breath. The moon, or fate, or whatever cosmic force wrote this prophecy, needed her to be broken, needed Damien to betray her, needed Celeste to destroy their friendship. All of it, every moment of agony, was somehow necessary for whatever comes next. That's monstrous, she whispers. That is, transformation, the voice corrects. You were not ready 3 years ago. You were too afraid of your power, too desperate to be accepted, too willing to diminish yourself for love that was never real. The woman who walked into that castle would have let them cage her flame forever. The images shift one final time, and Ilara sees herself, but not as she is now. This version of her stands tall, shoulders back, silver flames dancing along her arms without fear or shame. Her eyes glow with power that doesn't apologize for existing. Wolves bow before her, not in submission, but in recognition, in respect. But the woman who stands in this shrine right now, she is ready to burn the world down if necessary, and that daughter of the silver flame is exactly what we need. A sound from outside the shrine makes Ilara spin. Footsteps. Heavy, uneven, like someone injured but determined. Her heart leaps into her throat. Hunters. The pack catching up? But then Chaol stumbles through the pillars, and relief floods through her so powerfully, it's almost painful. He's covered in blood. Some his, mostly not, with claw marks across his chest, and a gash above his left eye, that's already healing. His amber eyes find her immediately, sweeping over her to assess for injury, and the naked relief on his face, when he sees she's whole, does something dangerous to her already fragile heart. You found it, he says, his voice rough and breathless. Then his gaze shifts to the glowing symbols, the silver flames dancing on the stones, and something like awe crosses his features. Gods. It actually awakened for you. You knew about this place. It's not a question. I've been searching for it for 3 years. He limps forward, favoring his left leg. The prophecy mentioned a sanctuary, but the location was lost. I thought. He stops at the edge of the circle, hesitating like he's not sure he's allowed to enter. I thought I'd have more time to explain, to prepare you. The voice said you've been dreaming about me. His jaw tightens. The moon has a cruel sense of humor. Is that a yes? Their eyes lock, and in the silver glow of the shrine, she can see every emotion he's trying to hide. Longing, frustration, a hunger that has nothing to do with his wolf, and everything to do with the man watching a woman he's been searching for finally step into her destiny. Yes, he says simply. For 5 years, Ilara, I've watched you in dreams, watched you smile at a man who didn't deserve you, watched him slowly kill the light in your eyes, and I couldn't do a damn thing about it, because the prophecy required me to burn first, she finishes bitterly. I know, the voice explained. Kale's expression darkens. If I could have changed it. But you couldn't. She wraps her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the shrine's warmth. None of us could. We're all just playing out parts in some cosmic drama written 300 years ago. Not all of it is written, Kale says quietly. He takes a single step forward, crossing into the circle, and the symbols pulse brighter in response to his presence. How you rise, what you do with your power, who you choose to stand beside you, those parts, those are still yours to decide. The weight of his words settles between them like a promise, like an offer. Why? She asks, and her voice cracks. Why risk everything for someone you've never even spoken to until tonight? Kale moves closer, and the silver light catches in his dark hair, painting him in shadows and flame. When he speaks, his voice is raw with an honesty that makes her chest ache. Because I've been alone in this fight for a decade. Because my bloodline is dying just like yours. Because when I saw you in those dreams, I didn't just see a prophecy. I saw home. The shrine's light flares so bright, it's almost blinding. And Alara knows, the prophecy isn't just about her. It's about both of them. Chapter 5. They don't get a moment to process what the shrine revealed. The howl that shatters the night isn't from the hunting party. It's something worse, deeper, threaded with authority that makes every wolf instinct in Alara's body snap to attention and scream danger. The sound rolls across the forest like thunder, and she knows with sickening certainty exactly who it is. Damien. The Alpha King himself has come. Kale's entire body goes rigid, his eyes flashing amber as his wolf surges close to the surface. He brought reinforcements. I can smell at least 20 wolves. His voice is tight, controlled, but she can hear the fury underneath. He's not here to talk. He's here to finish what the hunters started, Alara says, and her voice sounds steadier than she feels. The silver light under her skin responds to the threat, crawling up her arms in delicate patterns that look almost like armor. He can't afford to let me live. Not after everything. He should have thought of that before he threw you away. Kale moves to stand between her and the direction of the howl, every line of his body screaming protection. Stay in the shrine. The wards will hold against most wolves.
Most?
An Alpha King can break through given enough time. His jaw clenches. But I won't let it get that far. Before Alara can respond, before she can tell him he's insane, that he can't fight an entire pack alone, that she won't let him die for her, the trees explode with movement. Wolves pour into the clearing like a living tide, at least 24 of them, all bearing the mark of the royal guard. Elite warriors, the best Damien has. And in the center, larger than the rest, a wolf with silver-gray fur and eyes that once looked at her with something resembling love. Now, they're cold, calculating. The eyes of a king who views her as a threat to be eliminated. Damien shifts, bones cracking, muscle reforming, until he stands naked in the snow with a confidence that borders on arrogance. He's always been beautiful, tall, perfectly proportioned, with the kind of classic features that make other wolves gravitate toward him. But now, seeing him with clear eyes, Alara realizes his beauty is empty, a pretty shell wrapped around ambition and cruelty. Alara. Her name on his lips makes her skin crawl. You've made this so much more difficult than it needed to be. I made it difficult? The laugh that escapes her is sharp, brittle. You severed our bond, branded me a traitor, and sent hunters after me. But somehow I'm the problem? You were always going to be the problem. Celeste steps out from behind Damien, wrapped in a fur cloak that probably cost more than most wolves make in a year. She's wearing the crown now, Alara's crown, and the sight of it makes the silver flames under her skin burn hotter. Too powerful, too unpredictable. The pack needs stability, not a time bomb wrapped in pretty skin. The pack needed a scapegoat. Kale interjects, his voice like gravel. Someone to blame when your precious king's policies fail. someone whose power threatened to overshadow his mediocrity. Damien's eyes narrow as he studies Kael, and something like recognition flickers across his face. Kael Stormborn. I heard rumors you were still alive, skulking around the borders like a ghost. He tilts his head, faux curiosity dripping from every word. Tell me, what's your interest in my discarded mate? Planning to build your own pack from broken things? The insult hits its mark. Elara flinches, and she hates herself for it. Hates that his words still have the power to wound even after everything. But Kael doesn't rise to the bait. His voice stays level, dangerous. Your discarded mate is the Moon-blessed. The Silver Flame bloodline. Everything the old prophecies spoke about. He gestures toward the glowing shrine. But you were too busy playing politics to recognize what stood beside you. Prophecies. Damien's laugh is condescending. The sound of a man who deals in the tangible and has no patience for mysticism. Is that what you're clinging to? Ancient fairy tales to make yourselves feel important? The shrine says otherwise. Elara finds her voice, and she's surprised by how steady it sounds. The silver light crawls higher, wrapping around her shoulders like a cloak. It awakened for me. The symbols, the voice, everything the old stories claimed. It's real. Then you're more dangerous than I thought. Damien's expression hardens, and suddenly he's not the charming king anymore. He's the predator who clawed his way to power and crushed anyone who stood in his path. Which means you need to die tonight. Quickly. You can't kill her here, Kael says, and there's something almost pitying in his tone. The shrine won't allow it. Ancient magic, remember? The kind that predates your borrowed crown. Then we'll wait. Celeste smiles, and it's the smile of a woman who's already won. She has to leave eventually, and when she does, you'll have to go through me first. 1 wolf against 20? Damien shakes his head slowly. You're legendary, Stormborn. I'll give you that. But you're not invincible, and you're certainly not worth dying for someone who's already ruined. Ruined. The word echoes in Elara's mind, and something inside her cracks, not breaks, cracks, like ice splitting before a flood. All the shame, all the fear, all the years of suppressing who she was to make other people comfortable. It crystallizes into pure molten rage. Ruined? Her voice comes out wrong, layered with something ancient and furious. The silver light explodes across her skin, bright enough that several wolves step back instinctively. You think breaking my heart ruined me? You think your betrayal destroyed me? The symbols on the shrine pillars flare in response to her anger, burning so bright they turn night into day. Elara steps forward, and the ground beneath her feet begins to glow. With each step, power pours off her in waves that make the air itself vibrate. You didn't ruin me, Damien. You freed me. Her hands ignite, not with normal flame, but with silver fire that doesn't burn her skin. It dances along her fingers, wraps around her wrists, climbs up her arms like it's been waiting her entire life for permission to exist. Damien's confidence wavers. Just for a second, but she sees it, the flicker of fear in his eyes, the recognition that maybe, just maybe, he miscalculated. The prophecy spoke of reckoning, Kael says quietly, moving to stand beside her instead of in front of her. Equal, partner, not protector, but ally. You should have read the rest of it before you came here. There is no prophecy, Damien snarls, but his voice cracks on the last word. There's just a girl with dangerous power she can't control. Couldn't control, Elara corrects. The silver flames pulse brighter, and she can feel the shrine's magic responding to hers, amplifying it, weaving together until she doesn't know where the ancient power ends, and hers begins. Past tense. Because you know what happens when you stop being afraid of yourself? She raises both hands, and the silver fire erupts upward in twin pillars that reach toward the sky. The wolves in Damien's pack scramble backward, whining, their instincts screaming at them to run from something their king is too proud to fear. You become unstoppable. The ground trembles. The symbols on the shrine stones begin to lift, not the stones themselves, but the carved images, peeling away from rock and taking form in the air. Silver wolves, Dozens of them, made entirely of light and ancient magic, they circle the clearing, not attacking, but watching, waiting. "This is your last chance," Kale calls out, and his voice carries the weight of someone who's seen too many unnecessary battles. "Take your wolves and leave. Tell the packs that the Moon Blessed has returned, that the old bloodlines are awakening, that the age of control through fear is ending. Or stay," Elara adds, "and the silver flames dance higher, and learn exactly why your ancestors were so terrified of my bloodline that they tried to wipe it out." For a long moment, no one moves. The standoff stretches, taut as a wire about to snap. Damien looks at his wolves, sees their fear, sees them backing away, and Elara watches something ugly twist across his face. Pride. Ego. The inability to accept that he's lost. "Kill them both," he commands. "I want their bodies displayed at the capital by morning." But none of his wolves move. Not one. They stand frozen, caught between their king's orders and the primal terror of facing something their DNA remembers even if their minds don't. Celeste's face pales. "They won't, Damien. They're too afraid." "Then I'll do it myself." Damien shifts, bones breaking and reforming, fur erupting across skin. His wolf is massive, built for dominance and intimidation. But when he charges, when he launches himself at Elara, with claws extended and fangs bared, Kale is ready. He shifts mid-leap, colliding with Damien in midair, and the impact when they hit the ground shakes snow from the trees. The battle explodes around them, some of Damien's wolves finally finding their courage, or at least their obedience. They swarm toward the shrine, and the silver light wolves move to intercept, ethereal jaws closing on very real flesh. Elara stands in the center of the chaos, silver flames still dancing along her arms, and realizes with absolute clarity what comes next. She has to choose. Stay in the shrine where it's safe, where the wards protect her, and watch Kale fight her battles. Or step outside the circle, embrace the power fully, risk losing control, risk becoming the monster they all claimed she was. Risk everything. Kale crashes into a pillar, blood streaming from a gash across his ribs, and the decision makes itself. Elara steps beyond the shrine's protection, and the silver flames explode outward in a wave that sends half the attacking wolves flying backward. "You want to see dangerous?" she screams, and her voice carries across the battlefield like thunder. "Let me show you what Moonblessed really means." The power erupts from her core, not controlled, not gentle, but wild and ancient and absolutely furious. Silver fire sweeps across the clearing in a wave, and everywhere it touches, wolves stumble back, temporarily blinded by light that burns away shadow and lies and pretense. And in that moment, Elara finally understands what her grandmother tried to tell her. The power was never the curse. Hiding it was. Chapter 6. Kale's voice cuts through the chaos in her mind. He's limping toward her, one hand pressed against the wound on his ribs, blood seeping between his fingers. His other wounds are already healing, accelerated shifter metabolism, but this one looks deep, serious. "I've had worse." But his voice is tight with pain, and when he looks at her, there's something raw in his amber eyes. Pride, yes, but also fear. "You stepped outside the shrine. I was handling it." His expression softens. "You're right. I was losing." He reaches up, and his hand, rough, calloused, still stained with blood, cups her cheek with a gentleness that makes her breath catch. "But watching you embrace your power, watching you stop being afraid, that was worth every wound." Her eyes burn with tears she refuses to shed. "I don't know how to control it. What if next time I can't stop? What if I hurt someone innocent? Then we'll figure it out together." His thumb traces her cheekbone, and the simple touch feels more intimate than anything Damien ever gave her. "But right now, we need to move. Your display was magnificent, but it also announced your presence to every pack within 50 miles. Some will be curious, others will be terrified. And Damien, we'll come back with an army." She steps away from his touch, suddenly aware of how close they're standing, how easy it would be to lean into his warmth and pretend the world isn't falling apart. Where can we go? Every territory belongs to someone. Every pack will have heard what I did. There's a place, Kale says, and something shifts in his voice, something almost vulnerable, in the northern mountains, where the Stormwalker pack used to gather before we were hunted to near extinction. Your pack. What's left of it? He looks away, jaw tight. 3 others, all that survived the purges, 20 years ago. The weight of that confession settles between them. She's not the only one who's lost everything, not the only one carrying the burden of a bloodline that should have died, but stubbornly refused. Take me there, she says quietly. Please. They walk through the forest in silence, Kale's wound slowly knitting itself closed, Alara's power simmering just beneath her skin like banked coals. The storm has passed, leaving everything crystal clear and impossibly cold. Stars scatter across the sky in patterns that feel almost deliberate, like the universe itself is watching what comes next. After an hour of walking, they reach a cave, hidden behind a waterfall that's partially frozen, the ice catching moonlight and throwing it back in prismatic shards. Inside, someone has clearly been living here. Furs for warmth, a fire pit with wood already stacked, supplies carefully organized along the back wall. You prepared this, Alara says, taking it all in. You knew you'd bring me here. Hoped, Kale corrects. He moves to the fire pit and starts building a flame with practiced ease. The dreams showed me pieces, but not everything. I didn't know if you'd trust me enough to come. Didn't know if you'd survive what Damien would do when he finally showed his true colors. You could have warned me. She wraps her arms around herself, suddenly exhausted down to her bones. Years ago. Before I fell in love with him. Before I gave him everything. Would you have believed me? He doesn't look up from the fire, but she can hear the regret in his voice. A stranger appearing out of nowhere, claiming to have prophetic dreams, telling you that the man you loved would betray you. You would have thought I was insane. He's right. She knows he's right. But it doesn't make the anger any easier to swallow. The fire catches, warmth beginning to spread through the cave, and Kale finally stands. His shirt is ruined, hanging in tatters, so he shrugs it off completely. The movement pulls at his injury, and he winces. Let me see, Alara says, moving closer before she can overthink it. He hesitates, then nods. The wound is already mostly healed, but there's still an angry red line across his ribs, where Damien's claws went deepest. She reaches out, her fingers hovering just above his skin, and the silver light responds, gentler this time, curious rather than destructive. It flows from her fingertips and settles over his wound like liquid starlight. Kale inhales sharply. What are you? I don't know, she admits. But it feels right. The silver light sinks into his skin, and she watches the wound knit together faster than normal shifter healing. In seconds, there's nothing left but a faint scar that will probably disappear by morning. When she pulls her hand away, Kale catches her wrist. Not forceful, just enough to keep her from retreating. His skin is warm against hers, and she can feel his pulse thrumming steady and strong. You have no idea how long I've waited for this, he says quietly. His amber eyes meet hers, and there's a hunger there that has nothing to do with wolves or power or prophecy. Just a man looking at a woman he's been watching from the shadows, finally able to stand in the light, to be near you, to touch you without having to hide. You don't know me, she whispers, but her voice lacks conviction. You know the dreams, the prophecy, not the real person. I know you bite your lip when you're thinking. His free hand reaches up, thumb brushing her lower lip with devastating gentleness. I know you used to sing when you thought no one was listening. I know you cried yourself to sleep more nights than you'd ever admit, wondering why you weren't enough for him. Each observation hits like an arrow finding its mark. He has been watching, not just in dreams, but in reality, seeing her in ways Damien never bothered to. That's creepy, she says, but there's no heat behind it. Probably. A ghost of a smile touches his lips, but it's also true. Why? The question comes out broken, desperate. Why go through all this for someone you've never even spoken to? Why risk everything for a prophecy that might be wrong? Because I'm tired of being alone. The confession comes out raw, honest, and it cracks something open in her chest. Because my bloodline is dying and I've spent 10 years trying to keep the old ways alive, with nothing but stubbornness and spite. Because when I saw you in those dreams. He stops, jaw clenching like he said too much. What? She presses. When you saw me, what? His eyes search hers, and she can see him weighing the truth against self-preservation. Finally, he speaks, and his voice is barely above a whisper. I saw my mate. The word hangs between them like a struck bell, resonating through every fiber of her being. Her wolf, silent and wounded since Damien severed their bond, suddenly lifts its head and howls, not in pain, in recognition. That's impossible, she breathes. The mate bond doesn't work like that. You can't know from dreams. The Stormwalkers bonded differently than other packs. He releases her wrist but doesn't step away. Our magic was tied to intuition, to seeing threads of fate before they wove together. When I dreamed of you, I felt the pull, the certainty, the same thing my father described, feeling when he met my mother. Your father? Dead. The word is clipped, final, killed in the purges along with most of our pack, for the crime of being too powerful, too different, too threatening to the new order. She hears the echo of her own story in his words. Different bloodlines, same persecution. The world has been trying to kill them both for simply existing. I don't know if I can do this, she admits. Trust someone again. Let someone close. Damien destroyed nothing that can't be rebuilt. Kale's hand finds her face again, and this time she doesn't pull away. He broke your heart. He shattered your trust. But he didn't touch your fire. That's still yours, still burning, still fierce enough to bring kings to their knees. You saw that tonight. I saw you become who you were always meant to be. His forehead drops to rest against hers, and the intimacy of the gesture makes her eyes close, and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. They stand like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, existing in the same space. Two broken pieces that might somehow fit together if given the chance. I'm scared, she whispers. Good. His breath is warm against her lips. Anyone who's not scared of what comes next is a fool. But you don't have to face it alone. Not anymore. Promise? I promise. She opens her eyes, and his face is so close, she can see flecks of gold in the amber, can see the scars he carries, the weariness of a decade spent fighting alone, the hope that he's trying so hard not to show. Kale? Yes? Thank you, for not giving up on the prophecy. On me. His smile is small, sad, and utterly genuine. Thank you for stepping outside the shrine. The fire crackles behind them. Outside, the world is hunting them. Tomorrow will bring new battles, new challenges, new reasons to be afraid. But tonight, just for tonight, they're safe, together, and that's enough. Chapter 7. 3 days of peace is all they get. 3 days hidden in the cave behind the frozen waterfall. 3 days of learning to control the silver flames under Kale's careful guidance. 3 days of him teaching her the old stories, the forgotten histories, the truth about what the Moon Blessed were before fear turned them into monsters in everyone's minds. 3 days of shared meals, of quiet conversations by firelight, of slowly learning to trust again. 3 days before everything shatters. It starts with a howl, familiar but wrong. Elara jerks awake from where she'd been dozing against Kale's shoulder, her heart immediately hammering. Dawn light filters through the ice, painting everything in shades of blue and silver, and Kale is already on his feet, every muscle in his body coiled tight. That's Joshua, she whispers, recognizing the hunting party leader's signature call. But he sounds injured. Kale finishes grimly, or pretending to be. But then, another voice cuts through the morning air. Younger, desperate, unmistakably terrified. Elara, please, they have my sister. Her blood runs cold, She knows that voice. Finn. Finn, 17 years old. She used to teach him to read when he was younger, before Damien came into her life. His sister Clara is barely 13, both of them orphans who the pack barely tolerated, who Alara had tried to protect when she still had power to protect anyone. It's a trap, Kale says immediately, moving to block the cave entrance. Has to be. Of course it's a trap. Alara is already grabbing her cloak, pieced together from furs Kale scavenged. But if they actually have Clara, then she's already dead. His voice is harsh, but she can see the pain in his eyes. He's lost people too. Knows the calculus of sacrifice. Damien won't let her live even if you surrender. You know this. I know. Her hands shake as she fastens the cloak. But I have to try. I can't let a child die because I was too afraid to. You're not afraid. You're smart. There's a difference. He catches her arm, forcing her to look at him. The moment you step out there, you're giving him exactly what he wants. Then come with me. She covers his hand with hers. We face it together, like you promised. Something shifts in his expression. Resignation mixed with admiration, mixed with the bone-deep certainty that he's going to follow her into hell, if that's where she's determined to go. Together, he agrees quietly. But we do this smart, and if it goes wrong, it's already wrong. They emerge from the cave to find Joshua standing in the clearing, but he's not alone. 20 wolves surround him, more than he brought before, and in the center, bound with silver chains that burn her skin, is Clara. The girl is sobbing, her face already blistered from the metal, and Finn kneels beside her with a collar around his throat that Alara recognizes with sickening certainty. A compliance collar, banned by pack law for 50 years because of how inhumane they are. One wrong move, one command disobeyed, and it delivers a shock strong enough to kill. You came. Joshua's voice holds no triumph. If anything, he sounds tired, resigned. I told the king you would. Let them go, Alara demands, the silver light already crawling across her skin. Whatever issue you have is with me. They're children. Their leverage. A new voice, and Alara's stomach drops as Celeste steps into view. She's wearing different clothes now. Armor instead of silk. Practical instead of pretty. The crown is still on her head, but it sits wrong, like she hasn't quite figured out how to carry the weight of it. And you're going to do exactly what we say, or the boy's collar activates, and we get to see how much voltage a young wolf can handle before his heart stops. Kale's growl is subterranean, dangerous. This is low even for you. Using children is effective. Damien materializes from the trees, and Alara's breath catches. He's healed from their last encounter, but there's something different about him now. Harder, colder. Whatever humanity he once possessed, or pretended to possess, is gone. Something I learned from watching my father rule. Compassion is weakness. Mercy is a luxury we can't afford. Your father was a tyrant who died choking on his own blood, Kale says flatly, assassinated by his own guards, because they couldn't stomach his cruelty anymore. And yet he held power for 30 years. Damien's smile doesn't reach his eyes, long enough to eliminate most of the old bloodlines, long enough to cement our family's control, long enough to teach me that sometimes you have to cut away the diseased parts to save the whole. He looks at Alara when he says it, and she realizes with horrifying clarity that he actually believes it, believes she's a disease, a cancer that needs to be removed for the good of everyone else. I loved you, she says, and her voice cracks on the words. For 3 years I loved you. How did I never see this? Because I didn't let you. He sounds almost proud of it. Love makes people blind, makes them compliant. You would have done anything I asked, given up anything I demanded, all because you thought what we had was real. It wasn't? It was useful. He shrugs, like they're discussing weather instead of destroying the last fragments of her heart. You had power I wanted to study, control, possibly harness for the pack's benefit. But you were too unstable, too emotional, too human, Kale suggests, voice dripping venom. Weak, Damien corrects. She let her feelings dictate her actions. Let compassion cloud her judgment. The moon blessed of old weren't like that. They were warriors, conquerors. But you? He laughs, and the sound is cruel. You're just a girl playing with power she doesn't understand. The silver flames flare hot enough that the snow around Alara's feet begins to melt. Let them go. Here's what's going to happen. Celeste moves closer to Finn, her hand resting on a control device that must activate the collar. You're going to suppress your power. Completely. Let us place binding cuffs on your wrists. Come back to the capital as our prisoner. And if I refuse? Celeste presses a button. Finn screams, a sound so raw, so agonized, that it tears through Alara like a physical wound. The boy convulses, his body arching off the ground, and Clara shrieks for them to stop, her voice breaking on sobs. Stop! Alara surges forward, but Cal catches her around the waist, holding her back even as she fights against him. You're killing him. Celeste releases the button. Finn collapses, gasping, smoke rising from where the collar burned his throat. That was level 3, she says conversationally. There are 10 levels. At level 10, his brain will boil inside his skull. So I'll ask again, do you refuse? Alara's entire body is shaking with rage and helplessness, and the terrible understanding that she's trapped. If she attacks, Finn dies. If she runs, both children die. If she surrenders, Kale dies, trying to save her. There's no winning move. Why are you doing this? She directs the question at Celeste, her former best friend, the girl she shared secrets with under blanket forts when they were children. What did I ever do to you to deserve this? Something flickers across Celeste's face, too fast to identify, but Alara catches it. Guilt? Jealousy? Regret? You existed, Celeste says finally, and her voice is flat, empty. You with your perfect bloodline, and your ancient power, and your destiny. Do you know what it's like growing up next to someone, the moon herself blessed, being the ordinary one, the forgettable one? So this is about jealousy? Alara can barely process it. You destroyed my life because you were jealous? I took what should have been mine from the start. Celeste's composure cracks, and suddenly the venom pours out. Damien would have chosen me if you hadn't dazzled him with your power. The pack would have accepted me if you hadn't made them all feel inadequate just by breathing. Everything you had, everything you were, it should have been mine. I would have given it to you, Alara whispers, and she means it. If you'd asked, if you just talked to me instead of. Talking wouldn't have changed anything. Celeste's hand hovers over the control again. You can't give away what's written in your blood. So I did what I had to do. I took it. You took nothing, Kale says, and his voice cuts like a blade. You're wearing her crown, sleeping in her bed, playing at being queen, but you'll never be what she is. Never carry the weight of true power. You're a placeholder in a story that was never about you. The words hit their mark. Celeste's face twists with fury, and she raises the control. Joshua catches her wrist. Enough. Everyone freezes. Joshua, loyal soldier, faithful warrior, Damien's most trusted guard, is stopping Celeste from torturing a child. His face is grim, jaw clenched, but his grip on her wrist doesn't waver. This wasn't the plan, he says quietly. You said we'd negotiate, not torture children. The plan changed, Damien says coldly. Let her go, Joshua. No. Joshua looks at his king, the man he's served for 5 years, and Alara sees something break behind his eyes. I've followed you into battles I didn't believe in, hunted people who didn't deserve it, looked the other way when you made decisions that turned my stomach. But this? Torturing children to break a woman who's already lost everything? You're relieved of duty, Damien says flatly. Effective immediately. Good. Joshua releases Celeste and moves toward the children instead, because I'm done serving a king who's lost his God's-damned mind. Everything happens at once. Damien shifts, lunging for Joshua. Kale releases Alara and intercepts, the two alphas colliding with brutal force. Celeste screams and presses the button, but Joshua has already torn the collar from Finn's throat, the silver burning his hands as he rips it free. And Ilara stops holding back. The silver flames explode outward in a wave that sends everyone flying. The binding cuffs Celeste was holding melt. The weapons the guards are carrying become too hot to hold. The very air ignites with power that's been suppressed for too long, and when Ilara opens her eyes, they're glowing pure silver. "No more," she says, and her voice echoes with the weight of generations. "No more children used as weapons. No more innocent blood spilled for pride and power. No more." The power keeps building, keeps rising, and she can feel the shrine's magic calling to her from miles away, can feel every silver flame bloodline that came before her, watching, waiting, ready to pour their strength into this moment. She is moon-blessed. She is the reckoning. And she is done being afraid. Chapter 8. The world holds its breath. Ilara stands in the center of a circle of molten snow, silver flames rising from her skin like wings she never knew she possessed. Every wolf in the clearing is frozen, not from fear alone, but from the sheer weight of power pressing down on them, ancient, undeniable. The kind of magic that rewrites instinct and makes even alpha wolves want to bare their throats in submission. Damien struggles to his feet, blood streaming from where Kale's claws caught his shoulder. His eyes are wide, and for the first time since she's known him, Ilara sees genuine fear etched across his face. Not the calculated wariness of a king, assessing a threat, true, bone-deep terror. "This is why we feared you," he breathes. "This is why you could never be queen." "No," Ilara's voice resonates with power, each word vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. The silver flames climb higher, wrapping around her arms, her shoulders, weaving through her hair, until she looks like she's carved from starlight and fury. "You feared me because you knew I would never be controlled, never be diminished, never be made small enough to fit into your narrow vision of what power should look like." She takes a step forward, and the earth responds. Silver light erupts from the ground in her wake, spreading outward in veins that look like lightning frozen in soil. The trees around the clearing begin to glow from within, their bark illuminated with symbols that match the ones from the shrine. Ancient, older than any pack, older than the kingdoms that carved up these territories and pretended they owned what was never theirs to claim. Clara and Finn scramble backward, but Ilara raises one hand, gentle, controlled, despite the inferno of power coursing through her veins, and the silver light wraps around them like a shield. Warm, protective. The burns on Clara's wrists from the silver chains begin to heal, new skin replacing damaged tissue. Finn's throat, still raw from the collar, smooths over until only faint scars remain. "You used children," Ilara says, and now her voice carries the weight of judgment. "Tortured them, made them weapons in a war they never asked to fight. They were tools." Celeste starts, but Ilara's gaze swings to her former friend, and the words die in her throat. "They were innocents." The silver flames pulse brighter, hotter, and several of Damien's guards drop their weapons and back away. "But you've forgotten what that word means, haven't you? Both of you. Forgotten that power is supposed to protect, not destroy. That strength is measured not by who you can break, but by who you choose to save." Joshua, still standing near the children with his hands burned from removing the collar, meets her eyes and nods once, a silent acknowledgement, permission maybe, for what comes next. Kale moves to stand beside her, not in front, not behind, but equal, and his presence steadies something inside her. Anchors the power so it doesn't spiral into pure destruction. His hand finds hers, fingers interlacing, and where their skin meets, silver and amber light twine together like they were always meant to. "Last chance," Kale calls out, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Take your king and your false queen, and leave. Return to your capital. Tell them the Moon-Blessed has awakened, and the old laws are being remembered." "And if we don't?" Damien's recovering now, his alpha pride reasserting itself even in the face of overwhelming power. "If we stand and fight, you'll kill us all? Massacre an entire royal guard?" "No." Ilara squeezes Kale's hand and steps forward alone. The silver flames follow her like an extension of her will, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. I'll show you mercy, the kind you never showed me. She raises both hands, and the power erupts upward, not outward, not destructive, but skyward. A pillar of silver fire that pierces the clouds and turns the dawn sky into a canvas of impossible light. Every wolf within 50 miles will see this. Every pack will know something has changed. The moon blessed has returned, and with her the old magic that the modern packs have spent generations trying to forget. The pillar of fire begins to take shape, not random, but deliberate. Images form in the flames, visible to everyone in the clearing. Alara as a child, afraid of her own power, hiding it away. Her grandmother, whispering stories that turned out to be history. The purges, where bloodlines like hers and Kale's were hunted nearly to extinction. The fear that drove good wolves to do terrible things in the name of safety. And then, the truth. The Moon Blessed weren't destroyers. They were healers, protectors, the ones who held communities together when everything else fell apart. They channeled the moon's power, not for dominance, but for balance. We were trying to survive, he says, and his voice is hollow. The old ways were chaos, blood feuds that lasted generations, magic that destroyed as much as it created. We needed structure, laws, control. You needed balance, Alara corrects. But you chose dominance instead. And now look at what you've built. A kingdom held together by fear, where children are tortured and ancient bloodlines are hunted, where anyone different is deemed dangerous just for existing. The pillar of silver fire begins to descend, not extinguishing but transforming. It spreads across the clearing in waves, and everywhere it touches, it heals. The scarred earth from their battle smooths over. The burned trees regrow their bark. Even the wolves who were injured in the fighting feel their wounds knit closed, whether they want the healing or not. Why? She whispers. After everything I did to you, why heal me? Because mercy isn't something you earn. Ilara's flames begin to dim now, settling back into embers beneath her skin. The display has taken enormous energy, and she can feel exhaustion creeping in at the edges, but she holds herself steady, refuses to show weakness. Not yet. It's something you choose to give, even when it's not deserved, especially then. She looks at Damien, really looks at him, maybe for the first time since the bond broke, sees not the king or the man she thought she loved, but a wolf so consumed by fear that he destroyed everything beautiful trying to feel safe. I could kill you, she says quietly. Right now, the power is here. The justification is certainly present. You tried to have me executed. You tortured children. You've committed crimes that would warrant death in any pack court. His jaw clenches, but he doesn't look away, waiting for the sentence. But I'm not going to. She lets the words settle, because that would make me exactly what you accused me of being. A monster who destroys rather than builds. So instead, I'm giving you a choice. What choice? Return to your capital, keep your crown, rule your kingdom. Her eyes blaze silver. But know this. The old bloodlines are awakening. The magic you tried to suppress is returning. And if you come for me again, if you hurt anyone under my protection, if you try to cage what should run free, the silver flames flare one last time, brief but intense enough to make everyone flinch. I will burn your kingdom to ash and salt the earth so nothing ever grows there again. The threat hangs in the air, absolute and undeniable. Damien stares at her, and she can see him calculating, weighing his options, trying to figure out if she's bluffing. She's not. Something in her eyes must communicate that, because he finally nods, slow, reluctant, but a nod nonetheless. This isn't over, he says. Yes, Alara replies. It is, you just haven't accepted it yet. Damien shifts, bones cracking, fur rippling across skin, and his wolf is still magnificent, still powerful. But standing in front of Alara's silver flames, he looks diminished somehow, like a candle next to a bonfire, trying to pretend it shines just as bright. He runs. His guards follow. Within moments, the clearing is empty, except for Celeste, who stands frozen, the crown still on her head, but her expression utterly lost. Go, Alara tells her, and there's no anger in her voice anymore. Just exhaustion, and a sadness that runs deeper than betrayal. Play queen if that's what you need. But you and I both know that crown will never feel like anything but stolen. Celeste opens her mouth like she wants to say something, apologize, explain, defend herself. But in the end, she just turns and walks away, her shoulders hunched like she's carrying a weight she'll never be able to put down. Then, it's just the five of them. Alara and Cale, Joshua and the two children. The morning sun breaks through the clouds, painting everything in gold and silver, and for the first time in what feels like forever, Alara can breathe. That was incredible, Clara whispers, her young voice filled with awe. You saved us. We saved each other, Alara corrects gently. She kneels in front of the girl, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Your courage brought me here. Don't ever forget that. Finn looks at Cale, then at Alara, then at Joshua. What happens now? We can't go back to the capital. Damien will. You come with us, Joshua says firmly. His hands are still burned, but he doesn't seem to care. If you'll have me, I'd like to join whatever this is, whatever you're building. Cale glances at Alara, a question in his amber eyes. She nods. Then welcome, Cale says, to the first members of the new pack, or maybe the old pack, reborn. Either way, Alara finishes. We stand together, and we remind the world what magic looks like when it's not afraid to burn. Chapter 9. They don't stay in the clearing. Within the hour, they're moving north, deeper into the territories that the modern packs abandoned decades ago. The wild lands, places where the old magic still runs thick through the soil, where ancient trees remember songs that haven't been sung in generations. Cale leads them with the confidence of someone who's walked these paths before, who knows every hidden trail and sacred grove. Clara walks between Joshua and Finn, still processing everything she witnessed. Every few minutes, she glances back at Alara, like she's afraid she'll disappear, like the woman who saved her might turn out to be another dream in a long nightmare. Alara understands the feeling. She keeps expecting to wake up, to find herself still in Damien's castle, still trapped in a life that was slowly suffocating her. But the silver light pulsing gently beneath her skin, the weight of Cale's hand in hers, the exhaustion that sits heavy in her bones, it's all achingly, beautifully real. You're quiet, Cale says softly, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. I'm thinking. She watches the path ahead, the way sunlight filters through ancient pines in ways that seem almost deliberate, about what comes next, about the choice I gave Damien. Regretting the mercy? No. She's surprised by how certain she sounds, but I'm wondering if I should be, if letting him live makes me weak. It makes you different. Cale stops walking, turning to face her fully. Behind them, Joshua herds the children forward, to give them privacy. The old kings would have slaughtered everyone in that clearing, made an example, ruled through fear and blood. But you, he reaches up, cupping her face with both hands, and the tenderness in his touch makes her chest ache. You chose a different kind of strength, the kind that says I could destroy you, but I won't. That's not weakness, Alara. That's power so complete, you don't need to prove it through violence. What if he comes back? What if next time he brings a real army, and I have to? Then you'll do what needs to be done. His forehead touches hers, and she can feel his breath warm against her lips. But you'll do it as a last resort, not a first instinct. That's what separates you from him. That's what makes you worthy of the power you carry. And if I fail? If I can't control it next time? If the power takes over and you won't be alone. His hands slide down to her shoulders, grounding her. I'll be there. Joshua will be there. Every wolf who's tired of living in fear will find their way to us eventually. You're not carrying this burden by yourself anymore. She wants to believe him. Gods. She wants to believe that the crushing weight of destiny and prophecy and ancient bloodlines can be shared, distributed across shoulders other than her own. But there's a voice in the back of her mind, Damien's voice, cruel and cold, that whispers she's not enough, that she'll fail, that eventually everyone will see her the way he did, dangerous, unstable, too much trouble to keep around. I can hear you overthinking from here, Chaol says with a slight smile. What would help? Time. She leans into his touch, letting herself have this moment of vulnerability, and maybe hearing that I'm not insane for choosing mercy, that the voice in my head saying I should have killed them all is wrong. The voice is wrong. He says it with such absolute certainty that something tight in her chest loosens. It's his voice, isn't it? Damien's. Still in your head, still trying to make you doubt yourself. She nods, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. Listen to me. Chaol's amber eyes burn with intensity. He spent 3 years conditioning you to question your instincts, to second-guess your power, to believe you needed him to be complete. That damage doesn't disappear overnight, but every day, every choice you make from your truth instead of his lies, it gets quieter, until one day you won't hear his voice at all, just your own. How long did it take you, she asks quietly, to stop hearing the voices of the wolves who called your bloodline cursed? His smile turns sad. I'll let you know when it happens. The honesty of it, the admission that he's still fighting the same battle, makes her love him a little bit. Not the desperate, all-consuming love she felt for Damien. Something quieter, steadier, built on truth instead of illusion. They walk in comfortable silence for another hour before reaching a valley that takes Alara's breath away. A lake sits in the center, so clear she can see straight to the bottom even from the ridge above. Ancient stones circle the water, similar to the shrine but larger, more elaborate, and carved into the cliff face behind the lake is a symbol she recognizes immediately. A silver flame wrapped around a storm cloud. The ancestral gathering place, Chaol says, and his voice holds reverence, where stormwalkers and moon-blessed used to meet, where our bloodlines first recognized each other as kin. It's beautiful. It's home. He squeezes her hand. Or it will be, if you'll stay. The question hangs between them, not quite a proposal, but something close. An invitation to build something new from the ashes of everything they've lost, to take the broken pieces of their pasts, and forge them into a future that belongs to them alone. Before she can answer, Clara's voice cuts through the moment. Alara, there's someone down there. They all tense immediately, hands going to weapons that aren't there. But as they descend into the valley, Alara realizes the figure by the lake isn't a threat. It's an old woman, ancient really, with silver hair that falls past her waist, and eyes that glow with the same light that lives under Alara's skin. The woman smiles, and it's like looking into a mirror that shows not who you are, but who you could become. Granddaughter, she says, and Alara's world tilts sideways because her grandmother died 5 years ago. She watched them lower the casket into the ground, stood in the rain and mourned the only person who ever truly understood her. You finally found your way home. You're dead, Alara whispers. I buried you. You buried a body. The old woman, her grandmother, impossible but undeniable, gestures to the lake. But the moon-blessed don't truly die, child. We return to the source, to the magic that made us, and when our bloodline needs us most. She spreads her arms, and suddenly the valley is full of them, dozens of figures made of silver light and memory, all wearing faces that Alara recognizes from old portraits and older stories. The moon-blessed who came before, the ones who were hunted, killed, erased from history. All of them here, all of them watching. We come back, her grandmother finishes, to witness the rising, to see our legacy reclaimed, to welcome you into the truth of what you are. Alara's knees buckle, and only Chaol's arm around her waist keeps her standing. This is too much, too big. The weight of all these eyes, all these expectations, all these generations who fought and died so she could be standing here. Breathe, Chaol murmurs against her ear. Just breathe. She does, and slowly the panic recedes. Because yes, the weight is enormous. Yes, the responsibility is terrifying, but she's not carrying it alone anymore. Her grandmother's spirit moves closer, translucent but undeniably present. The question now, Elara Nightshade, daughter of my daughter, carrier of the silver flame, is what will you do with the power you've been given? I don't know, Elara admits, her voice shaking. I don't know if I'm strong enough, if I'm wise enough, if I'm— None of us knew, her grandmother interrupts gently. But we chose anyway, to rise, to fight, to burn bright enough that others could find their way home by our light. The spirits begin to fade, not disappearing, but sinking back into the lake, into the stones, into the very fabric of this sacred place. Her grandmother lingers longest, one translucent hand reaching out to cup Elara's cheek. Make us proud, she whispers, but more importantly, make yourself free. Then she's gone, and Elara is standing in a valley full of living witnesses and ancient magic, with a choice that will define not just her future, but the future of every wolf who's ever been told they were too different, too powerful, too dangerous to exist. She looks at Kale, at Joshua, at two children who should never have known the taste of silver chains and compliance collars. And she thinks about everyone watching this story unfold, everyone who's ever felt abandoned by someone they loved, betrayed by someone they trusted, diminished by a world that was threatened by their light. Would you have chosen her side? She asks, and the question echoes across the valley. If you'd been there, watching a woman step outside the safety of a shrine to save children she barely knew, watching her choose mercy when violence would have been easier, watching her try to build something new, instead of destroying everything old. Would you have stood with her? Or would you have been one of the wolves backing away, afraid of power that refuses to apologize for burning bright? The valley is silent, waiting. Because that's the real question, Elara continues, and her voice grows stronger with each word, not whether she's a hero or a villain, not whether the prophecy was real or the moon was watching, but whether you, yes you, listening to this story, would have the courage to choose differently when the world tells you to stay small, stay safe, stay silent. She raises her hand, and silver flames dance along her fingers, controlled now, purposeful, beautiful instead of terrifying. This is just the beginning, she says. The first chapter of a story that's still being written. And if you want to know what happens next, if you want to see how a woman abandoned by an alpha king rebuilds herself into something he could never touch, never diminish, never destroy, the flames pulse brighter. Then subscribe to Clarissa Romance Collections. Because here, we don't just tell stories about wolves who fall in love. We tell stories about wolves who remember what they are, who reclaim their power, who burn bright enough to light the way for everyone who's still lost in the dark. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because Elara's story, our story, is far from over. And trust me, she adds with a smile, that's equal parts promise and threat, you won't want to miss what comes next. Chapter 10. Night falls over the valley like a velvet curtain, and the stars appear one by one, brighter here than anywhere Elara has ever seen. Kale builds a fire while Joshua tends to the children, making sure they're warm and fed. The normalcy of it should feel strange after everything that happened, but instead it feels right, like pieces of a puzzle finally clicking into place. Elara stands at the lake's edge, watching moonlight dance across water, so still it looks like polished glass. Her reflection stares back at her, and for the first time in months, she recognizes the woman looking up from the depths, stronger, scarred, but undeniably, irrevocably herself. You should rest, Kale says, appearing beside her with that uncanny silence of his. You expended enormous energy today. Your body needs time to recover. I will. She doesn't look away from the water. But first, I need to understand something. The spirits, my grandmother, they said the moon-blessed return to the source when they die. Does that mean you'll never truly be alone? He finishes her thought, and there's understanding in his voice. Yes, every moon-blessed who came before is woven into this place, into the magic itself. You can call on them if you need to, learn from them, They're your legacy. And your bloodline? The Stormwalkers? We return to the wind. He tilts his head back, looking at the stars. My father used to say that every storm carries the voices of our ancestors, if you know how to listen. I thought he was being poetic. Now I know he was being literal. She reaches for his hand, lacing their fingers together. We're the last ones, the only ones left of bloodlines that once numbered in the hundreds. Not anymore. He nods toward the fire, where Joshua is teaching Finn how to properly sharpen a blade while Clara practices her letters in the dirt with a stick. We're building something new. 4 became 5 today. 5 will become 10. 10 will become... A tremor runs through the ground, cutting off his words. Subtle at first, like a whisper through stone, but then stronger, more insistent, and the water in the lake begins to ripple, despite the absence of wind. Alara's hand goes to her chest instinctively, feeling for the silver light. It's there, steady and strong, but this tremor isn't coming from her power. It's coming from somewhere else, somewhere deep. That's not normal, Joshua says, abandoning his lesson with Finn to move closer. His soldier's instincts are on high alert, every muscle in his body coiled for a fight. No, Cale agrees, his voice tight. It's not. The tremor grows stronger, and now Ilara can see cracks forming in the ancient stones that circle the lake, hairline fractures that glow with a light that isn't silver or amber, but something darker, deeper. The color of old blood mixed with shadow. Everyone back from the lake, she commands, her voice carrying authority she's still getting used to. They scramble away just as the water in the center of the lake begins to churn. Not from below, but as if something is trying to push through from another place entirely. The fabric of reality thins, ripples, and Ilara can see shapes moving behind it, massive, ancient, and decidedly not friendly. What is that? Clara whispers, her young voice trembling. A door? Cale breathes, and there's something in his voice that Ilara has never heard before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Someone's opening a door. To where? To the place we locked them away. His jaw clenches. 300 years ago, when the bloodlines were still strong, when Moonblessed and Stormwalkers and all the others worked together, we fought a war against creatures that fed on wolf magic, that corrupted it, turned it into something twisted and wrong. The water erupts upward in a geyser of darkness, and Ilara sees them clearly now. Wolves, but wrong. Their fur is matted with shadow that moves independently of their bodies. Their eyes glow with sickly green light, and when they howl, the sound is layered with voices that should never come from a wolf's throat. The corrupted, Joshua whispers, and his face has gone pale. I thought they were just stories, legends to scare young wolves into behaving. All legends have truth buried in them, Ilara says, and the silver flames are already crawling across her skin, responding to the threat. Cale? How many? In the other realm? Hundreds. Maybe thousands. He's shifting as he speaks, bones cracking, preparing for battle, but the door is still small. Only a few can come through at a time. Then we close it. Ilara steps forward, power building in her core, before more can cross. You can't, a new voice says, and Ilara's heart stops because she knows that voice, has heard it in 1,000 nightmares since the bonding ceremony went wrong. Damien steps out from behind one of the ancient stones, but he's not alone. Celeste is with him, and so are at least a dozen wolves, all wearing the mark of the royal guard. But there's something different about them now. Their eyes hold that same sickly green glow as the creatures coming through the portal. You're too late, Damien continues, and his smile is all wrong, too wide, too sharp, showing too many teeth. We already opened it, 3 days ago, when you were busy playing house in your little cave. We found the old texts, learned what the ancients feared most. You're corrupted. Cale snarls, and his wolf is massive now, black fur bristling with barely contained rage. You made a deal with them. We made a deal with power. Celeste speaks now, and her voice has that same layered quality as the corrupted wolves. Real power. Not the scraps you cling to, not the dying embers of bloodlines that should have gone extinct. They promised us dominion over all the packs, promised us magic that doesn't come with weakness and sentiment, and they lied. Alara interrupts, and her voice cuts through Celeste's speech like a blade. Whatever they promised, they lied. The corrupted don't make deals. They consume. They take. And once they're done with you, there won't be anything left but shadow wearing your face. Damien laughs, and the sound echoes wrong in the valley. Still so naive. Still believing that mercy and compassion mean anything in a world built on strength. We were fools to fear you, Alara. You had all that power, and you wasted it, healing children and sparing enemies. But us? He raises his hand, and the portal in the lake pulses wider. More corrupted wolves begin to push through, their twisted forms barely resembling the creatures they once were. We're going to burn down the old world. Every pack, every territory, every wolf who clings to the dying traditions, and from the ashes, we'll build something new, something pure, something. Enslaved Kale finishes. You'll be slaves to the corruption, puppets dancing on strings made of shadow and lies. Is that what you wanted? To trade one prison for another? For just a moment, one brief, flickering moment, something human flashes across Celeste's face. Doubt, regret, the recognition that maybe, just maybe, they've made a terrible mistake. But then it's gone, swallowed by the green glow in her eyes. It's too late for second thoughts, she says. The door is open, the corrupted are coming, and you, all of you, are going to be the first casualties in a war that will reshape everything. The corrupted wolves surge forward, and Alara has just enough time to think that they're outnumbered, outflanked, and completely unprepared for this fight. But she doesn't run. She stands her ground, silver flames erupting along her arms, and behind her she can feel the others taking their positions. Kale on her right, Joshua on her left, even the children, too young and too brave, ready to fight because they have nowhere else to go. Together, she says, and the word is both a promise and a prayer. Together, Kale echoes. The corrupted wolves attack, and the valley erupts into chaos. Silver flames meet shadow. Amber lightning clashes with sickly green corruption, and somewhere in the distance, carried on wind that shouldn't exist, Alara hears her grandmother's voice one last time. This is only the beginning, child. The true Alpha hasn't risen yet, but when she does, oh when she does, the world will remember what it means to fear the moon's chosen. The ground beneath Alara's feet cracks, and from the fissures, more silver light erupts, not from her, but from the valley itself, from the lake, from the stones, the ancient magic of this place, awakening after centuries of sleep. And in that light, Alara sees something that makes her breath catch. A vision, maybe, a promise from the moon herself. More figures in the distance, dozens of them, wolves with eyes that glow silver and amber in colors she doesn't recognize, other bloodlines, thought extinct. Other powers, thought lost forever, all of them moving toward the valley, toward her, toward home. She is not the only one. A voice whispers from everywhere and nowhere, layered with power that makes reality itself bend. The bloodlines are awakening. The hunt is ending. The age of hiding in shadows is over. Damien's corrupted wolves freeze, sensing something their twisted instincts recognize as a threat greater than anything they've faced. And Alara, standing in a valley that pulses with ancient magic, surrounded by the first members of a pack that will change everything, facing an enemy that should have stayed locked away, smiles. You wanted a war? She says, and her voice carries across the valley like thunder. You're going to get one, but not the war you expected, not the war you can win. The silver flames erupt skyward, a beacon that every wolf for 100 miles will see, a signal. A summons. A declaration. The moon blessed has returned. The old bloodlines are rising, and we are done hiding from wolves who traded their souls for power they'll never truly own. The portal in the lake shudders, and for a moment, just a moment, Alara could swear she sees something on the other side. Something massive. Something ancient. Something that makes the corrupted wolves look like insects by comparison. And it's watching her. Waiting. The tremor subsides. The corrupted wolves retreat back through the portal, and Damien, still wearing that wrong smile, raises his hand in a mocking salute. "See you soon, my love," he says. "When we come back, we're bringing an army." Then they're gone, and the portal snaps closed, leaving only ripples on the lake's surface. Alara sinks to her knees, exhaustion finally catching up with her. But even as darkness crowds at the edges of her vision, even as Kael catches her before she hits the ground, she's smiling. Because they're coming. The other bloodlines. The lost wolves. Everyone who's been hiding, waiting, hoping for a sign that it's safe to return. They're coming home. And when they arrive, when all the ancient powers stand together for the first time in 3 centuries, the corrupted won't stand a chance. "Rest," Kael whispers, cradling her against his chest. "You did enough for one day." "Not nearly enough," she murmurs, consciousness fading, "but it's a start." Her last thought before sleep claims her is a question that will haunt her dreams. What was that thing in the portal? The massive presence watching from the shadows? And more importantly, why did it look at her like it recognized her face? The end, for now. The story of Alara Nightshade, moon-blessed and abandoned mate, continues. But that tale, the war with the corrupted, the gathering of lost bloodlines, the truth about what watches from the other side, that's a story for another time. If you want to see how this epic saga unfolds, if you want to witness the rise of wolves who refuse to stay broken, if you want to know what happens when ancient powers awaken in a modern world, subscribe to Clarissa Romance Collections if you haven't. Hit that notification bell, because the moon is watching. The bloodlines are rising, and this story is just beginning to burn.